talking about Patek Philippe today. Haven't discussed the brand in a long time. I thought, you know what? Let's try to dress the part. Let's try and look appropriate for once. Show everyone that you can make a tie. Let's do it. Now that I'm sitting here and the recording's about to start underneath the spotlight, I'm kind of regretting that decision. It's like a furnace in here. Patek. What a marvelous brand, and what a year they have had when it comes to their releases. It continues to amaze me how much this brand evolves and develops, and there is a strong reason why it is so prominent and important today. It's incredible to see how far they've come and to see the pieces that they have introduced. Their grand complications, they are unrivaled. But the most talked about subject is the discontinuation and the return of the Nautilus. So in this video I want to focus on the three main candidates, the most important pieces. The Nautilus 5811, discuss its development, its history and where it is now. Also look at the left-hand drive, the completely out-of-this-world 5373, as well as the more contemporary olive dial 5204. What is so fascinating about these three pieces is that they are vastly different. And this is at the heart of what makes Patek Philippe so fantastic as a maker, is they don't isolate their work into one category. They manage to expand. They push the development of horology while at the same time offering a selection of watches that the majority obviously prefers. All the while, still busy creating piece uniques and exceptional watches. So before getting into discussing these watches, a bit of orientation around me, where I stand with Patek Philippe. If given a choice of one watch from their collection, any watch I wanted, 5370p. That machine is flawless. And where do you start? Extra thin, platinum case, white gold caps on the ends of the lugs, a coaxial Rattrapante with applied Breguet numerals on a black enamel dial, a small diamond at the 6 o'clock position, and you have to ask yourself, what else do you really need? The functional and beauty side of things, it's so nicely balanced, but at the same time, it's the kind of watch that you could wear every single day and it probably wouldn't be noticed by many. Another superb thing about Patek as a brand is they offer the watches that are really out there, that are really flashy, but at the same time, they also have these hidden gems. A model like the 5959, the real precursor to this range. They are something else, pieces of art that deserve to be celebrated. So that's where I see Patek as a brand, and this leads very neatly on to the Nautilus discussion. A stainless steel sports watch that is extremely elegant, no doubt, we will talk about that in a moment. But this demand and this need to own one, it's become unbelievable. I mean, why are people so interested in wanting this watch? And unfortunately, it has to do with herd mentality. It comes with the territory that this watch is being seen on the wrists of prominent celebrities, and it's a domino effect, plain and simple. You can't really help it. With regards to the design of this watch, well, it's polarizing, and the best designs often are. I think any kind of artwork, any kind of creative endeavor, if it doesn't stir up a conversation, if it doesn't have people who like it and hate it on both sides, then what's the real point? It's better to have something that actually causes discourse than something that just flies by without much attention. For all the criticism that this watch receives, it is elegant, it's beautiful, it's refined, there is no question. And the new 5811 is exactly that. I would say it's probably the most beautiful Nautilus they have ever created, with regards to bringing it up in scale, keeping the profile extremely thin, introducing small technological improvements like better servicing capability since the crown can be removed easier, as well as micro adjusts on either side of the bracelets so it's easier to wear in warmer weather. These are all welcome changes that should have been addressed a long time ago, but now that it's here, it is the Nautilus in the most complete package yet. But let's go back a few steps and talk about the discontinuation of the 5711 and the controversy surrounding that. The fact that they were saying they were going to do it, but then brought out a green dial and brought out another evolution, and it just kept going and going. Thierry Stone himself said that he never wanted a watch to define his brand. He didn't want one watch to be the staple, and I think as enthusiasts, we can see the brand a lot more than just being a Nautilus. We see the Grand Complications, World Times, we see Calatravas, Aquanaut. There is so much that the brand offers that I think a large portion definitely appreciates. So to see this 5811 return again so soon, it's quite a surprise. I'm sure a lot of people were expecting it. But the fact that this model is now in white gold and not in steel might mean that they are trying their best to deviate away from the madness that is Nautilus mania. Now look, they have refined this watch down to a T. It looks absolutely stunning. From the mechanical improvements, as well as small aesthetic changes, like now the date window has a frame which looks superb. Far more considered, and I think that's extremely important when you're dealing with such a simplified watch. As well as the change of Patek Philippe script on the dial, if I remember right. And to accompany the 5811, we see the 5712 now return on a full metal bracelet. And this was the one watch that really connected me with the Nautilus. This was the first I ever handled. 5712R with a leather strap and deployant. And if I was someone remotely interested in owning a Nautilus, this would be the one I would pursue. It is beautiful. So there is definitely a strong divide in this Nautilus pool. A lot of people appreciate it for its streamlined design, for its history. But at the same time, it's appreciated because everyone else says it's great. People don't have their own opinions about the design of the watch. They're more interested in getting what everyone else is getting. But the real area of disinterest is that the Nautilus, the Aquanaut, all of these models have moved into a completely different category. Frankly, we can't get them even if we wanted to. They're no longer seen as leisure sports watches to be enjoyed. They are now seen as commodities, things to trade and sell. And sadly, that is the state of the watch space in a few areas. If I had to offer my 2 cents, when we think of the name Patek Philippe, we shouldn't immediately think about the Nautilus. We should be thinking about the grand complications, the mind-blowing perpetual calendars, the grand sonneries, the tourbillons, the miniature pieces. These are designs and evolutions that were conceived decades before the Nautilus arrived. Now let's talk about the reference 5373, Destro case, the left-hand drive perpetual calendar chronograph. This thing is mad. So this model is based on the 5372, perpetual calendar chrono, same configuration, but this one has been flipped 180 degrees around. I think it's safe to say that Patek Philippe is taking a feather out of Rolex's cap with the Destro GMT, the Sprite, whatever they are now calling it. And it's a really odd decision. This is not something that I think anyone would imagine Patek Philippe to do. And of course, the obscurities is what's going to make it so collectible and sought after. On one hand, it looks modern. On the other, it looks classic, old school. And this piece and its configuration reminded me of early perpetual calendar Audemars Piguet dials. But it also makes my brain hurt a bit, and I'm left-handed. This watch is technically designed for me, someone who wears a watch on their right wrist. And it's mainly to do with the configuration. Let me explain. We can clearly see that this complication was never designed to be upside down, especially when we look to the 2 side windows for the date and the day. Since most of us read our watches from left to right, March, Saturday, it's the wrong configuration, it's the wrong order. And more often than not, standard pieces, standard chronographs, the running seconds is normally oriented on the left-hand dial or at the 6 o'clock position. So this configuration does mix things up a little bit. Seeing the date complication at the 12 o'clock position is odd. Seeing Patek Philippe at the 6 o'clock with the moon phase looks very neat. But it's mainly that central portion that's head-scratching. It's also quite interesting to see that a lot of the design cues were taken from the 5470. I recognized this design before, and it comes across looking far more modern, something closer to looking like an FP Journe than it does a Patek Philippe. And that's a good thing, don't get me wrong. I might sound like I'm bashing left-hand watches, but it offers so much more creative diversity and interest into this hobby. And it's great to also see that the little guy, the 10% portion of people who wear watches on their right wrists, finally getting a bit of time in the spotlight. Also really appreciate the colors used on this model. This definitely pushes it in a modern direction. Not only a platinum case, beautiful case, I was talking about the 5370 earlier. Great choice of red accent colors on the central seconds and the minute hand, as well as the red stitching. Instead of going down the route of using an alligator strap, they've chosen a fabric strap. So as much as there is a real juxtaposition looking at this watch, the fact that everything's inverted, there is a great sense of fluidness and connectedness between all of these elements. So even at first, when you look at it, it does make your head spin. It still makes sense. And then to the 5204, arguably one of the best watch movements ever created. And instead of seeing this piece in yellow gold or rose gold, looking very traditional, seeing it in white gold with these olive accents gives it a far more modern look. Purists and new time collectors might see this watch very differently, because this color configuration takes away that pompousness, if you could use that, of a grand complication chrono. It's not using a white enamel dial with lofty yellow gold accents. Instead, it's going with white gold and an olive finish, which in some ways subdues the impact of such a heavy-hitting piece, and this is not something for everyone. With such an incredible watch like this, you would wear it once a month, maybe over the course of a weekend. But in this configuration, it could be a daily driver very easily. And maybe this was their idea, to create this watch to be far less in your face, far more casual. So you see what I mean when I say that this brand offers so much and more. Beautifully refined Nautilus that has been near perfected, I would say. As well as the fact that they like to do things differently. They're flipping a case upside down and offering a completely different take on a modern classic, as well as taking a seriously traditional watch with one of the most amazing complications ever conceived and making it more casual, turning it into a daily wearer. The sad state of affairs today is that most of us probably would never be able to afford these watches or experience them in our lifetimes, but it's still good to talk about. The reason why Patek gets such great recognition is because it's a brand that does continually push the envelope. But instead of being a brand that is staunch and set in their ways, this one likes to experiment. This likes to go in a different direction and to see just how far they can push the development of their product line. And this is the main reason why Patek Philippe is worth discussing.